kind of the three things that I saw as a common theme across your shares just now. And I do believe, in my experience, mindfulness can be very helpful with all of these. So I'll just throw a shout out to UNC Chapel Hill. That's where I did my PhD, and I was also faculty there in the School of Public Health in the Department of Nutrition for 3 years. I've been meditating for over 25 years. And I teach meditation at Furman. I teach a 4-week course in meditation that I've been teaching for 6 years there now to students, as well as faculty and staff. About a year ago, I started teaching in a maximum security men's prison in South Carolina as well. And I'm currently working with the Greenville, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, working with the police department to see if I can offer a mindfulness-based stress reduction course for our law enforcement officials. So I really do feel, as a public health professional, I feel a deep call toward sharing these practices because they have made such a huge difference in my life. And I do view them as a public health intervention. We were talking a little bit earlier on the call about how maybe our diets have changed during the time of COVID. And I do see wellness as, even though my training is in nutrition, I see wellness much broader than just physical health. And so I do believe that our emotional, social, mental health and well-being are so important when we think about this. So mindfulness really fits in there as well. I'll also say that I also teach the mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And this is a course that was developed in the 70s by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn in Massachusetts. Has anyone ever heard of MBSR? Awesome. Colleen has, because she's taking it. So I'm going to share a one-pager. Our Colleen will share a one-pager with you after this that does mention mindfulness-based stress reduction, but this is seen as kind of one of the gold standards of mindfulness-based interventions, and we have a lot of evidence to support its beneficial impacts. We've seen specific to over the last 30 years to counter the daily stress responses. So mindfulness-based stress reduction can counter our daily stress responses. There's been cool research that shows changes in the structure and function of the brain. So we see parts of the brain associated with fear actually become smaller over time on brain scans of people who practice meditation. So just to highlight that fear response that we all have that's hardwired, but by practicing over time, we can actually reduce the size of the amygdala, which is pretty interesting to me. Specific to cancer, mindfulness-based programs have shown clear benefits to folks during treatment and through survivorship as well. Specific in treatments, improvements I have seen research on are in overall quality of life, distress, anxiety, depression, improvements in sleep, and reductions in overall reported stress. I did look up the research specific to lung cancer, and I saw a series of studies that demonstrated improvements also in quality of life, distress, rumination. And if you're not familiar with the word rumination, it's kind of like when you get caught in a thought loop, maybe thinking about the future, what could happen, and you kind of sucked into that thought loop. So mindfulness-based stress reduction in these practices have been shown to reduce rumination in lung cancer survivors. And then improve self-compassion, which is another little note I wrote down here. And I thought this was interesting too. They've shown that for those who are family members, so they'll have mindfulness-based stress reduction courses with survivors and their family members, and they show a decrease in family member burden. So the experiences that family members feel when their loved one has lung cancer, that burden has been reduced by participating in these courses. So that's a little bit about why from a evidence-based perspective and from the medical community. Chances are good you've heard of this before. I know at least one person said this is up their alley. So some of us have an idea of what this is already. To set a common understanding. So mindfulness, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is a way of being. So mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment, on purpose, with curiosity. So it means I'm aware of what's happening right now, and I'm not judging my experience or upset and wishing my experience was different, but I'm just with it. I'm here, I'm present, I'm not thinking about what I'm gonna eat for lunch after this call. I'm not thinking about all the errands I need to run. I'm not thinking, well, we don't really run errands anymore, do we? I'm not thinking about what comes next. I'm really just in this moment. And if you take a moment to think about or reflect for yourself how often that happens, it's not a state that we're all in throughout the day, right? We'd never get anything done. There are times we have to plan and we have to do things. But as we cultivate meditation, we are building our mindfulness muscle. So if you think about like training your muscle to learn to get really big biceps, because I don't know why we care about that, but maybe you care about really big biceps. So you practice and that builds your bicep muscle over time. When we do meditation, that's just like training your brain. It's building your mindfulness muscles so that you're more likely to be able to slip into that state of being where we're really present with what's happening. I'm aware of the sensations in my body. I'm aware of my heart racing because I'm giving a presentation to people I haven't met before, right? I'm aware of all of this that's happening in me in the moment instead of starting to critique myself like, ooh, why did I say it like that? That sounded horrible, right? That takes me out of the moment. Whereas if I'm just aware of what's going on, it's a different state. So that's the idea with mindfulness and meditation, the difference between the two. Mindfulness is a state of being. Meditation are the exercises we do that help train the brain, that change that structure and function of the brain over time so that we find ourselves in this state of being where we're present more often. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about mindfulness and meditation before we try some? All right, how about we try some? Okay, so I have a couple of ideas written down on things we can try. And I also just came up with a couple more as you guys were sharing. I think I want to probably finish with practicing a compassion for self and others exercise that I think it's been super helpful to me when I notice my anger about the way people are behaving in my state related to social distancing and mask wearing. So I'll share that one at the end. But to get us started, so a formal meditation practice, what we're doing is we're taking our attention and we're focusing it in a particular way on something. Of course, our mind is going to get distracted, right? And we're going to start thinking about, God, my stomach growled. I wonder what I'm going to eat for lunch. There's nothing in the fridge. I need to make a grocery order. Can it get delivered here? You're like, of course that's going to happen. And the practice, the way we do our little bicep curls is we notice we're planning out our lunch and we say, oh yeah, that's right. I was going to pay attention to my breath right now. And we bring our attention back to the breath. So when our mind wanders, we don't have to beat ourselves up. We actually celebrate that we know it wandered, and then we just come back to whatever we were paying attention to. And that can happen 100 times. Each time it happens, think about it like just a little bit of a weight lift you just did. So that retraining our brain, when we sit down with intention and we say, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to focus on the sensations in my body. I think about lunch. Oh, that's right. I'm going to focus on the sensations in my hands right now. Each time we come back, that's changing the structure and function of our brain. That's training our brain not to be so distracted, and it's training our brain not to move into that fight or flight response. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Okay, so we're going to practice a basic attention focus meditation to start with. We can do meditation in all different kinds of postures. So we can be seated, and that may, when you've seen pictures of people meditating, maybe they're seated, maybe they're cross-legged and doing weird things with their hands, who knows. But you can do this in any position. So we can be seated. I like to usually sit in a chair because my hips are a little tight, and just sitting in a normal chair is great for me. If when you sit to practice, you notice you're pretty tired and you start dozing off, sleep is great. It's different than meditation, but sleep is also important. So maybe you decide, I'll go take a nap and I'll come back and meditate. Or if you don't want to fall asleep in this moment, standing up, it's a lot harder to fall asleep standing up than it is sitting down. So you can meditate standing up, you can meditate sitting. If you choose to meditate someday and you realize, gosh, my body is just really not feeling good today, and it'd feel great to lie down, great meditations happen lying down too. It's a little easier to fall asleep when you're lying down, so that might be one you want to know that you have a little more energy before you choose that posture. So those are the three main postures we talk about for a basic breath or body meditation. And then if we're in the seated position, I like to think through the different parts of my body. So if you want to join me here, I start with my seat and I kind of ground myself, find something that's comfortable. And then I really bring my awareness to where my body is making contact with the chair or the sofa. And then I notice my feet flat on the earth. So we don't want to cross our legs, but if we put our feet flat on the earth and just notice how our feet are grounded into the earth. Then I think about my arms. I like to put my hands with my palms down on my knees. That's comfortable for me. Sometimes it may be helpful to have a cushion on your lap if you want. That takes a little bit of the strain off of the shoulders sometimes, so some people like to do that. Or if you're sitting like I am at a table, you can put your hands on the table. You can fold your hands, you can do whatever you want, but just a relaxed posture as much as possible. And then some people like to extend just a little bit, so tuck their chin just slightly, thinking about a string maybe, pulling their head up straight, and you can kind of feel your vertebrae stacked right on top of each other, just kind of straightening. So dignified posture. People like to say take a dignified posture, not too tight, not too loose. So we're not like, but you can imagine this nice straight spine and then even bringing some softness to the muscles surrounding the spine, around the back. And then you're welcome to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or lower your gaze. Either one is appropriate. And we'll start by noticing that we are transitioning from doing to being. So we were just learning about meditation and mindfulness. And now we are going to be present. And we begin by establishing an anchor for our awareness. We can start with the sensations in our feet or our hands. Noticing any sensations that are available to you right now in your feet or your hands. Another suggestion for an anchor is what we call the contact points. So we can pay attention to any sensations where our body is making contact with something else. So this could be the chair underneath the backs of our legs. Maybe we feel the chair against our back. Perhaps we feel our feet on the floor. Just gently resting our awareness in the sensations where our body is making contact with something else. Or perhaps another option is the breath. The breath may be a place to rest our awareness. We can notice the sensations of breathing, whether that's the rise and fall of the chest or the belly. Perhaps we're aware of the temperature at the nostrils or the lips, the air being cooler on the inhale and warmer on the exhale. These anchors are all suggestions. It's for you to choose which anchor in this moment is best for you. It really doesn't matter which anchor you choose. It's about anchoring our awareness with available sensations. And when we do so, it allows us to be present, to know that we are here, awake. When the mind wanders, it's no big deal. In fact, it's a tiny moment for celebration. Because when we know the mind has wandered, we're aware of thoughts. And in that moment, we can choose to gently and firmly bring our awareness back to our anchor. Sensations in the hands or feet, the contact points, or the breath. Widening the lens now to include sound. Shifting our awareness to rest in the sounds, receiving sound. These may be sounds from inside our body, sounds in the room we're in, perhaps the air conditioning that just kicked on. Or perhaps you're aware of sounds outside of your room or even outside of your house. Building the capacity to rest our awareness in sound. And we'll take just a few more breaths like this with sound. Receiving sound. And then as you are ready, if your eyes were closed, gently fluttering them open at your own pace and rejoining our Zoom room. And then I'd love you to take a moment to just check in. Do you feel any different? Having spent, that was about 4 minutes. Do you notice anything different? And I'd love to hear from a couple of people if you're willing to share what that experience was like for you.
I feel more relaxed.
Okay. Where do you notice that?
I felt like I wanted to go take a nap.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was what I was noticing.
Great. Did anyone else notice a little bit of sleepiness come on?
I did, but I also had my dog next to me, and she just wanted me to pat and pat and pat her.
Uh-huh.
Extremely relaxing.
Uh-huh.
And yeah.
So I used to have 2 dogs, and one of my favorite activities was mindfully petting my dog. So it's a really beautiful practice to just very mindfully have a loving touch for another being. It's really beautiful.
Yep.
Anyone
Megan,
else?
I wanted to just interject that I meditate every morning, and this is what anchors me for the entire day, because the rest of the day I'm actually practicing it or trying to keep my focus, because it's so easy to get distracted with everything going on right now. You know, it's hard to keep focused sometimes. Like I'll make coffee and forget if I put in my cream, if I did it or not. But you know, I love this. And I also want to offer a suggestion, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
There's an app that you can download, and it's called Insight Timer. And if you just Google that, you can download the app. It has thousands of meditations, and you can set the timer so that if you only want to do a minute or you want to do a half hour, you can just set whatever you want. And you can look it up by compassion or relationships or just breathing, which is the one I use the most, especially for us lung cancer survivors. Yes. Lung cancer survivors, I mean, it's really important to take in the deepest breath you possibly can and try and hold it as long as you can at the top, and then push it out as hard as you can. And that works for me the best. It keeps me just present, and I count too. And I listen to all kinds of different kinds. I like the chimes and the birds in the background. So I just thought I'd offer that up.
Thank you, Joyce. That's wonderful. The timer.
What's the name of it?
I'll type
Insight.
chat box.
Insight?
Good idea.
Chat box there, and it's a free app, as Joyce said, that has thousands of guided meditations, as well as a nice timer if you want just some silence. You can set the timer, and there's all different choices of bells. You can pick your favorite bell to let you know when you're done. So it's a wonderful app. Thank you for that suggestion. And I, like you, Joyce, I practice every morning because that helps kind of establish my foundation for the day as well. I don't know if you guys have heard of the idea of the window of tolerance. Has anyone heard about the window of tolerance? So the window of tolerance is when we're inside of our window of tolerance, we can handle whatever comes at us, and we may feel stress. We may feel a little bit of a stress response, but we're able to manage it. And we don't get, thrown off into, snapping at someone or whatever it is. Like things come in and we're in our window of tolerance. Oh, this is uncomfortable, but I can manage this. When we're outside of our window of tolerance, you may have examples that you can think of where something that normally wouldn't really bother you, just for some reason today, I just couldn't handle that, right? And I snapped at someone, or I said something I wish I wouldn't have said, or whatever that may be. So the idea is that meditation and mindfulness helps us expand our window of tolerance. And so I think about that every morning when I sit down to meditate, is like, okay, I am doing my training to expand my window of tolerance so that today, hopefully, what comes at me, I can respond in a way instead of just habitually reacting, creating that little bit of space between whatever happens, a stimulus, an event, and then I have a little bit of space because I've expanded my window of tolerance, and I can actually respond in a more skillful way. So that's part of why I practice every morning. It sounds like that's helpful for you as well, Joyce. That's great. Did anyone else have an experience with that meditation? Maybe that wasn't great. I mean, did anyone feel a little like, I don't know about that stuff? Or something that was difficult that came up as they were sitting? So it's really important to, Colleen, did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it made me realize, like, when you try to focus your mind and attention on one thing, like all the places my mind was that I like wasn't even aware of or didn't know, and like how fast our mind moves, and you don't really recognize that until you're trying to do something really hard, like focus on your breath or something like that. And I felt like tension leave my shoulders. I don't know if anyone else felt that, but, and I think that might, you know, have to do, I hold tension in my shoulders, but also like working at a computer and things like that. So that was just what I noticed.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up, Colleen, because I do want to mention that if this isn't a regular practice that you have and you choose to start doing this, at the beginning of a mindfulness practice, sometimes people think, wait, this is making things worse. Like, I'm noticing all these pains in my body, or I'm noticing that I get angry more than I thought I did. And part of that is because we're actually paying attention. So in the beginning, sometimes when we start a mindfulness practice, we're actually allowing ourselves to see what our life is like. We're allowing ourselves, we're giving ourselves the gift of really noticing the thoughts and emotions that are coming in. And so just like a little heads up that if you decide to start doing this and that happens, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do this or there's something wrong with you that this is coming up. That's actually a sign that, oh wow, I'm actually paying attention to my life now. You know, there are many coping mechanisms that we all develop. Some are less healthy than others, right? And we can see the far extreme would be addiction, right? Of coping mechanisms that we use because something is coming up in our life and we don't like that. We don't want it to be that way, so we numb out. We do something to move away from how the world is right now, how our life is right now. So sometimes when people start a practice, it's just good to be aware that you start to see how the life is. And what I just find so beautiful, and the reason that I keep doing this, is as I practiced, as I built that mindfulness muscle, in the beginning I started to see what was hard, but this practice helped me see so much more joy and beauty than I ever knew was around me as well. So we get to start to see more of everything, which there is so much beauty, even in the times of COVID and you know, everything that we're seeing in our world right now. There really are beautiful flowers that are blooming right now in the Carolinas. Just amazing flowers that if we pay attention can blow my mind and bring me to tears when I see that level of beauty. Okay, so that was one. That was our attentional focus practice. And there are plenty of meditations, as Joyce said. So you can look for meditations that are focused on the breath. You can look for meditations that are focused just on sensations in the body. They're body scan meditations. If you know that there's something that really worked for you, you might want to look for a meditation like that in particular. Another thing I will say is that sometimes when we allow stillness, we may notice difficult emotions come up. And so it's also important to know that we have resources within us. And anyone who is a cancer survivor is full of resources, right, that you have drawn upon. And so just knowing that if something difficult comes up, it's wonderful to open our eyes, to ground ourselves in the environment and take in the environment around us. We can do this very mindfully. And just to know that there's so many resources that we have to process anything that may be hard that comes up through any of these self-care practices that we may want to take. I know that last month you guys talked about exercise, right? And so I think of meditation just like I think of exercise and nutrition and a spiritual practice. It is a part of what I do. It's one of these tools that I have that help me be present in the world. Okay, I thought it might be cool to try a compassion meditation. That's been really helpful for me. Trained as an epidemiologist, I am noticing myself triggered everywhere when I see people acting like I wish they weren't during COVID. And so this is one I have been drawing upon probably more than any other practice in COVID. And I will put a link in the chat after this to Chris Germer. So Chris Germer and Kristen Neff have developed mindfulness-based self-compassion, mindful self-compassion, which is really beautiful. They have a whole course you can take in a curriculum, but Chris Germer has a number of meditations available on his website. He has recordings that you can listen to that I think are really beautiful. So I'm going to guide us through an exercise that is compassion for self and compassion for others. All right, so let's go ahead and mindfully find a posture that will support us to stay awake. And if it's comfortable, we can close our eyes or relax our gaze. And then let's begin by taking 3 deeper breaths. So elongating the inhale, elongating the exhale. Noticing how the breath nourishes the body on the inhale and soothes the body on the exhale. And then allowing your breath to come to its natural rhythm. Resting your awareness in the sensations of breathing. Perhaps allowing yourself to be gently rocked and caressed by the rhythm of your own breath. And gently shifting our awareness now to just the inhale. Savoring the sensations of breathing in. This life-giving breath, nourishing our body, breath after breath. And as you breathe, breathing in something good for yourself, whatever you need. This may be a quality of warmth, kindness, love. Perhaps you can actually feel this quality, or there's an image that comes to mind, or even just seeing the word in your mind's eye. With each inhale, bringing in this quality to yourself. And shifting the focus now to the out breath, the exhale. Feeling your body breathe out. This release with each exhale. And then the invitation, if possible, is to bring to mind someone whom you love or someone who is struggling and needs some compassion. Visualizing that person clearly in your mind. You can begin directing the out breath to this person, offering them this ease of breathing out. And if you wish, intentionally sending them warmth and kindness and love or something good with each out breath. And now letting go of what you or the other person may need. And just focusing on the sensation of breathing compassion in and out. Sending and receiving something good. Perhaps you can say in your mind's eye, in for me, out for you. Or one for me, one for you. And if you'd like to send something good, this compassion to more than one person, perhaps expanding to the folks on the Zoom call this lunch hour. Expanding to everyone in the city where you live, or the state of North Carolina. The entire US, and maybe even the whole globe. And then maybe finishing with 3 to 5 more breaths, coming back to this in for me and out for you. Breathing in compassion for ourselves, nourishing ourselves with this love. And breathing out for others. And at your own pace, gently blinking your eyes open, and perhaps slowly, ever so slowly, turning your head to the left. Noticing any colors or shapes. And slowly turning your head back to the center. Turning to the right, taking in the space to the right of you. Back to center. Slowly looking up as much as comfortable, taking care with the neck. Maybe it's even just raising the eyes to notice the space above us. And then mindfully lowering the head to notice the space below us. And raising our eyes to notice each other. So this meditation, I will send you the link that you can listen to Chris Germer sharing this. I'll put this in the chat box, but also I think when Colleen emails, perhaps she can share all of these links as well.